There is a realm beyond what the eyes can see and the mind can grasp. A realm where plans are made, paths are cleared, and lives are protected without a sound. Most spiritual people walk through life unaware of just how deeply involved heaven is in their everyday affairs. They pray, they believe, they hope, but they do not fully realize that they are being watched, not with suspicion, but with divine intention. They are being guarded, not because they ask for it every day, but because they are marked by purpose. And purpose always attracts protection. Long before the crisis comes, a way of escape is already prepared. Long before the battle begins, a hedge is already built. The spiritual don't always see it, but they are never left to fight alone. Let us journey into this truth, not with fear, but with awe, as we uncover the quiet, powerful reality that spiritual people don't know they are being watched and protected. Spiritual individuals often navigate their lives with an inherent sense of trust and faith, completely unaware that their every step is being watched over by a higher power. There is a profound and often unspoken reality in the lives of those who walk with spiritual conviction, and that reality is the unseen vigilance that surrounds them. They may not consciously recognize it, but their lives are under constant observation from forces that transcend human comprehension. The divine surveillance that takes place over their existence is not always evident to the naked eye, yet it is undeniable in its consistency. The essence of this protection is not that it is visible or even detectable in the traditional sense, but that it is ever present. The unseen surveillance, while not always understood, is felt in the profound peace that a spiritual individual experiences during times of uncertainty. It is found in the inexplicable calm that envelops them when the world around them is in chaos. The trust and faith they possess are so deeply ingrained in their beings that they cannot fathom the extent to which they are being guarded by divine forces. It's as though a protective blanket covers them, woven not by human hands, but by an invisible thread that ties them to something far greater than themselves. The unseen surveillance takes place in a realm that is beyond human comprehension. Spiritual individuals might not be aware that each decision they make, each move they take, and every step they consider is observed, guided, and sometimes even redirected by a higher power. They may encounter obstacles, challenges, and adversity along their path, yet there is a quiet assurance that somehow something greater is watching over them, leading them toward the fulfillment of their purpose. This divine presence is woven into the fabric of their reality, often working in ways they can neither see nor fully understand. In fact, it is in their inability to fully comprehend the scope of their protection that the spiritual journey becomes so profound. The beauty of divine surveillance lies in its subtleties. It doesn't seek recognition or applause. It doesn't demand acknowledgement or gratitude. It simply exists, working quietly behind the scenes to ensure that the spiritual individual stays on course. When they face moments of doubt, they might experience a strange sense of confidence that comes not from their own reasoning, but from an unseen source. This protection is not always in the form of grand gestures or dramatic interventions, but rather it manifests in the form of small miracles, quiet nudges, and the sudden clarity that appears when decisions seem too overwhelming to make. It is the divine hand that gently steers them when they are lost and picks them up when they have fallen. Spiritual individuals often carry an unshakable sense of purpose, even when the road ahead appears uncertain. This sense of direction is not born of human understanding, but rather it flows from a deep-seated belief in a higher power that is working on their behalf. They walk through life with a kind of quiet assurance, knowing that they are not alone, even if they cannot perceive the forces that are at work. The protection they receive is not always visible in the way that we might expect, yet it is so constant and pervasive that it becomes a part of their very existence. This constant divine surveillance is what sustains them in their moments of trial, and it fuels their faith when everything else seems to fail. This divine watchfulness is not limited by time or space. The spiritual realm operates outside of the boundaries that confine the physical world, meaning that the protection given to the spiritual individual is not bound by the limitations of human existence. There is a timeless quality to the surveillance, a divine awareness that is never interrupted and never limited by external circumstances. In fact, it is often in the moments when the individual feels most vulnerable that the surveillance is most potent. When the world seems to be crumbling, when the weight of life's burdens threatens to break them, there is a constant, unseen force providing the strength needed to carry on. For the spiritual individual, this divine surveillance is a source of strength. They may not always understand the way it works, but they learn to trust in it. They begin to realize that while they cannot control everything around them, they can rely on the unseen guidance that is always present. In times of decision, they might not always know the right choice to make, but they trust that the steps they take will be guided in the right direction. This trust, this unwavering faith in something greater than themselves, becomes the foundation of their lives. It becomes the very essence of their being. The protection that they receive is not about preventing them from facing challenges, but rather about ensuring that no matter what happens, they are never truly alone. What is most remarkable about this divine surveillance is that it often goes unnoticed until after the fact. Many spiritual individuals might go through their entire lives without ever consciously acknowledging the magnitude of the protection they receive. They may face hardships, make mistakes, and experience moments of confusion, but in retrospect, they will often recognize how those moments were part of a greater plan, one that was intricately woven and guided by a divine hand. This realization may come in a quiet moment of reflection or in the aftermath of an event that seemed to defy explanation. It is then that they may look back and see the subtle ways in which their path was being shaped and directed by something far beyond their own comprehension. Divine surveillance is not something that can be fully understood or grasped by the human mind. It operates in the realm of the unseen, and it is through faith that the spiritual individual continues to walk confidently, even when the world around them remains clouded with uncertainty. They may not see the watchful eye that is constantly upon them, but they can feel its presence in the form of peace, protection, and an unshakable sense of purpose. It is this divine surveillance that carries them forward step by step through the journey of life, reminding them that they are never truly alone. For the spiritually attuned, protection often does not come in the form of visible barriers or dramatic warnings. Instead, it manifests as an invisible shield, a kind of divine armor that surrounds them in every circumstance, whether they are conscious of it or not. This shield is not something that can be seen or touched, yet it is profoundly real, offering a sense of security and assurance even in the most uncertain of times. Unlike the physical barriers we might imagine when we think of protection, walls, gates, or armed guards, this shield operates in the unseen realms, guarding against dangers and adversities that might not even be apparent to the human eye. The true nature of this invisible shield is that it does not necessarily prevent difficulties or challenges from coming into the life of the spiritually aware person. Protection in this sense is not about creating an obstacle-free existence. In fact, the spiritually attuned are often called to face difficult circumstances, hardships, and trials that test their strength, character, and faith. However, what this shield offers is the ability to overcome those difficulties, to rise above them with an unseen support that gives them the resilience to continue their journey. The shield's power lies in its capacity to help individuals navigate life's struggles in ways that transcend human ability or understanding. When facing turbulence or adversity, the shield's presence is often felt as an overwhelming sense of peace. In moments of personal crisis, when the world seems to be spinning out of control, the spiritually attuned may experience a tranquility that does not align with the severity of the situation. It is as though a calm has descended upon them, providing clarity and strength when the storm around them rages. This peace is not a product of their own making. It is a divine provision, a protective covering that allows them to endure without being consumed by the situation. The shield acts like a cocoon, offering them the time and space to process, to heal, and to find solutions without the overwhelming weight of fear or anxiety. In the midst of turmoil, this invisible shield often manifests as a sense of inner fortitude that allows the spiritually attuned to stand firm. It may not stop the challenges from coming, but it ensures that they do not crush the spirit. For example, when faced with a personal loss, a professional setback, or an unexpected trial, the shield may present itself in the form of an unexpected source of support, an uplifting word from a friend, or a sudden moment of insight that leads to a breakthrough. This shield helps the individual move forward with a sense of confidence, knowing that the circumstances they face are not meant to break them, but to refine them. It creates a space where their faith can grow, where their trust in the divine can deepen, and where their ability to persevere is tested and strengthened. Another remarkable aspect of this invisible shield is the way it opens doors when all seems closed. When a path appears blocked and every door seems to have been shut, the spiritually attuned may find that an unexpected opportunity arises, an invitation, a connection, or a new avenue that had not been previously visible. It is as if the shield, in its unseen capacity, clears the way when the individual is in desperate need of direction. This is not mere coincidence or chance. It is the manifestation of divine protection, guiding the individual to the next step in their journey. The shield works in ways that transcend human planning or foresight, revealing opportunities and opening doors that the individual may not have even known existed. This divine shield is often experienced in moments when everything appears lost. In the face of a seemingly insurmountable obstacle, the individual may feel as though they are at their breaking point, yet somehow they find a way through. They may not always understand how they got there, but they know that something larger than themselves was at work. It could be a small detail that shifts the entire situation, an unexpected person entering their life at just the right time, or an internal shift in perspective that allows them to view the challenge from a different angle. The invisible shield enables them to see beyond the immediate difficulty, helping them recognize the opportunity for growth or the lesson hidden within the struggle. This shield is not just about providing physical protection. It also works on a deeper, more spiritual level. It shields the individual from the negative influences of fear, doubt, and despair. When faced with a trial, it is natural to feel overwhelmed and uncertain, but the spiritually attuned person, through their trust and faith, is often able to transcend these emotions. They find that the shield protects their mind and spirit, keeping them focused on the greater purpose and on the promises that have been given to them. Even when the world around them is chaotic, they maintain a sense of peace, hope, and assurance, knowing that they are not alone in their struggles. Moreover, this invisible shield works not just for the individual, but for those around them as well. The spiritually attuned person often becomes a source of light and strength to others, even without intending to. Their peace and resilience serve as a testimony to the power of the unseen protection that surrounds them. When others see how they navigate their own trials, they are drawn to the source of that strength and may even experience a measure of the same protection themselves. The shield extends beyond the individual, creating a ripple effect that touches everyone in their sphere of influence. The beauty of this invisible shield is that it is not earned or deserved based on actions, but rather it is a divine provision that comes as a result of the spiritual person's faith, trust, and relationship with the higher power they serve. It is an expression of grace, a constant reminder that protection is not contingent upon perfection or achievement. The shield is given freely, ensuring that no matter the circumstance, the individual will always have the strength to face whatever comes their way. This invisible shield is a powerful testament to the divine love and care that surrounds the spiritually attuned individual. It is not always obvious, but its effects are undeniable. It is a constant presence in the life of the believer, guiding them, protecting them, and enabling them to rise above the challenges that come their way. The shield does not prevent storms from coming, but it ensures that when the storms do arrive, they will not be defeated. The protection it provides is not always visible, but its presence can be felt in every moment of peace, strength, and resilience that the individual experiences. Many spiritual individuals walk through life unaware of the vast and powerful spiritual forces that are working tirelessly on their behalf. They may not realize the profound depth of the protection and guidance that is being directed toward them. Their awareness of these forces may be minimal at first, as the spiritual realm operates in ways that are not always tangible or easy to comprehend. Yet, the more they grow in their spiritual journey, the more they begin to understand that their protection and direction are not the result of random chance or personal effort alone. There is something much greater at work, an unseen orchestration of events that is constantly guiding their path and ensuring their safety. These spiritual forces, though invisible to the human eye, are always at work in the background of their lives. They do not operate with the limitations of time or space that govern the physical world. Their influence is boundless, extending far beyond what the individual could ever imagine. For most, these forces work quietly, without fanfare or recognition, and often go unnoticed until after the fact, when the individual looks back and realizes the divine hand that guided them through difficult moments. What is most remarkable about these forces is that they don't simply provide protection from danger. They actively work to shape the individual's life, orchestrating events and situations in such a way that they lead them toward their ultimate purpose. In the early stages of their spiritual journey, many individuals may not recognize the extent to which they are being protected or directed by these unseen forces. They may face challenges or obstacles that seem insurmountable, and they might feel as though they are navigating life entirely on their own. However, as they grow in their relationship with the divine and deepen their spiritual awareness, they begin to realize that there is a much bigger picture at play. The obstacles they once thought were hindrances are often revealed as stepping stones, placed deliberately on their path to help them grow stronger, wiser, and more resilient. It is often only in retrospect that they begin to see the intricate web of connections, coincidences, and seemingly random events that were in fact part of a divine plan to guide them toward their destiny. They might recall moments when doors seemed to open at just the right time, or when an unexpected opportunity appeared out of nowhere. It is during these moments that they begin to recognize that there is a force greater than themselves, orchestrating events in their favor. These forces are not merely reactive, but proactive, working behind the scenes to ensure that the individual is always moving in the right direction, even when they are unaware of it. As the individual matures spiritually, they begin to understand that their protection does not come only from physical means or from their own strength and wisdom. It is a deeper, more powerful protection that transcends human understanding. These unseen forces are always working in ways that are not immediately visible, but are no less real. They are orchestrating events, opening doors and closing others in order to guide the individual toward their purpose and fulfillment. Even in moments of hardship, these forces are at work, turning what may seem like setbacks into opportunities for growth and transformation. One of the most profound aspects of these unseen forces is that they work without the need for the individual's constant awareness or involvement. They don't need the individual to understand every detail or to see every step of the process. The individual's job is simply to trust, to walk in faith, and to allow the divine plan to unfold in its own time. As they continue to walk by faith, they are led by these unseen forces which are constantly moving in the background, making connections, and arranging circumstances in ways that ensure the individual is protected, directed, and guided toward their purpose. For the spiritually attuned, the realization that they are never truly alone in their journey is a powerful one. The presence of these forces provides comfort and strength, especially in times of uncertainty or trial. Even when they feel lost or overwhelmed, they can trust that there are forces working behind the scenes, ensuring their safety and well-being. These forces work in ways that may not always be immediately evident, but their impact is felt in the peace, clarity, and direction that the individual experiences along their journey. This process of becoming more attuned to the spiritual forces at work requires a growing awareness and sensitivity to the subtle signs and guidance that often go unnoticed. It requires an openness to the idea that there is more to life than what is visible and tangible. As individuals deepen their spiritual connection, they begin to recognize that the world around them is full of signs, synchronicities, and moments of divine intervention. These subtle messages serve as reminders that they are being guided, protected, and directed by forces that are beyond human comprehension. In many ways, the more an individual grows spiritually, the more they become aware of how intricately the spiritual forces are woven into every aspect of their lives. The deeper their connection to the divine, the more they realize that these forces are not only protecting them, but are actively working to ensure that they live in alignment with their true purpose. These forces are not bound by the limitations of the physical world. They operate in the spiritual realm where time, space, and circumstances are fluid and malleable. The divine forces that work on their behalf are capable of shifting the course of events, guiding them to the right people, and opening doors that they could never have opened on their own. This awareness of the unseen forces at work also brings with it a deep sense of gratitude and awe. The individual begins to realize how much they have been protected, directed, and supported by forces they cannot see but know to be real. They may reflect on moments when they were spared from danger, or when circumstances fell into place in miraculous ways, and they understand that they were not merely lucky, they were divinely guided. This realization fosters a deeper trust in the divine and a greater sense of peace, knowing that no matter what comes their way, there is a higher force at work, ensuring that they are always on the right path. In time, the spiritually attuned person becomes more conscious of the ways these forces are working in their lives. They no longer feel as though they are wandering aimlessly or struggling alone. Instead, they walk with the assurance that there is a greater plan unfolding, one that they are a part of, even if they do not fully understand it. The more they embrace this truth, the more they begin to see the hand of the divine in every aspect of their journey, knowing that no matter what happens, they are never truly alone. They are always under the protection of unseen forces that are guiding them toward their ultimate purpose. There are unseen beings, assigned, ordained, and commissioned, whose sole purpose is to protect, guide, and minister to those walking a spiritual path. These spiritual helpers, often referred to as angels or divine messengers, are not figments of the imagination or poetic metaphors, but real, intelligent forces dispatched from the invisible realm. They do not demand recognition or worship, nor do they interrupt the flow of daily life with loud proclamations. Instead, they work silently and faithfully in the background, ensuring that the individual remains in alignment with divine order, shielded from harm, and encouraged along their journey. Every spiritual individual, knowingly or unknowingly, benefits from the presence and ministry of these guardian beings. They are not reserved for the elite or the extraordinary, but are assigned to each person, often from birth, acting as watchers, protectors, and guides through life's complex terrain. What makes their presence so profound is that they often intervene without being seen, heard, or acknowledged. Their work is not about recognition. It is about obedience to the divine assignment and love for the soul they've been sent to watch over. They operate under divine command, moving in synchronization with the higher plan for each individual life. These beings are not merely symbolic. Throughout sacred texts, traditions, and the testimonies of people across cultures and generations, there is a consistent thread pointing to the reality of angelic and spiritual intervention. Many have experienced near misses, strange coincidences, or moments of uncanny timing where something just happened to fall into place, only later realizing that these were not coincidences but divine interventions orchestrated by their spiritual helpers. Whether it was a delay that kept them from harm, an inner voice that redirected their steps, or a stranger who appeared in a moment of need, these were often manifestations of guardians at work. The nature of these guardians is not to force but to assist. They do not override free will, nor do they dominate decision-making. They respond to spiritual alignment, to prayer, to a heart that is open to divine guidance. When individuals are sensitive to the spiritual realm, they may begin to discern the presence of these helpers through intuition, discernment, or unexplainable peace during dangerous or stressful moments. Sometimes, they may receive dreams, promptings, or inner nudges that seem to have no natural origin but prove to be profoundly accurate or timely. These are often the fingerprints of guardian spirits, gently guiding them through life's unseen dangers. Though their interventions are often invisible in the moment, they become more apparent in reflection. The spiritual individual might look back and realize, I should have been in that accident, or I almost signed that disastrous contract, or I don't know why I turned around that day, but something told me to. These are the echoes of divine protection, of angels moving subtly yet decisively to redirect what could have gone wrong. This is the silent nature of true protection. Its power lies not in dramatics, but in its consistency, its faithfulness, and its quiet resolve. In times of crisis, these spiritual helpers often become more active, standing in the gap between the individual and harm. There are stories of people sensing a presence during traumatic events, or feeling an invisible hand that steadied them when they were about to fall. Some recount being inexplicably calm in a life-threatening situation, or finding a path forward in total darkness. These are moments when the spiritual veil is momentarily lifted, and the individual glimpses the intervention of a power that cannot be explained by human logic. These guardian forces are not only protectors, they are also messengers and encouragers. In moments of deep discouragement or confusion, they whisper hope. In seasons of transition, they help bridge the old and the new. In times of loss, they bring comfort. Their guidance may come through impressions, scriptures that suddenly speak directly to the heart, or through people who unknowingly deliver the very word or act of kindness that was needed. These moments are not accidental. They are orchestrated by divine beings who understand the exact need of the soul and how to meet it. While their work is silent, their impact is loud. The more spiritually aware an individual becomes, the more they begin to honor and appreciate these unseen companions. They may begin to recognize patterns, recurring moments of divine timing, or preserved safety in circumstances that should have ended differently. With this awareness comes gratitude, not just for what has happened, but for what was avoided, for the things that did not break them, for the danger that never touched them because a divine hand stood in the way. Spiritual helpers operate not out of obligation, but out of purpose and love. They are committed to the call on the individual's life and to the fulfillment of that purpose. Their protection is not limited to physical safety. It extends to emotional well-being, spiritual growth, and even the preservation of destiny. There are times when they remove relationships that would derail the spiritual journey, close doors that seemed promising but were traps in disguise, or bring about delays that felt frustrating but were necessary for preparation. All of this is their work. Quiet, strategic, and relentless. Their protection is a constant, not a variable. It is not dependent on how perfect the individual is, but on the assignment that has been placed upon their life. These guardians are assigned to purpose, and where there is divine purpose, there will be divine protection. That is why some people survive what should have destroyed them, why they recover from losses that would have broken others, and why they continue to progress despite the odds stacked against them. It is because the invisible has intervened on behalf of the visible. The spiritual has stepped into the natural. This kind of divine assistance is not always explained, but it is always experienced. It requires spiritual sensitivity to recognize it, faith to trust in it, and humility to be grateful for it. Guardian angels and spiritual helpers are not the exception to the journey. They are essential to it. They walk with those who walk with the divine, ensuring that no matter how difficult the path becomes, the individual never walks it alone. They are sentinels of purpose, protectors of destiny, and silent warriors standing between the soul and its destruction. The unaware spiritual person walks through life with a kind of quiet boldness, not always because they are fearless, but because their soul leans on something greater than themselves. Even without consciously recognizing it, they carry within them a deep reservoir of trust in the unseen. This trust is not rooted in logic, nor is it the product of calculated decisions. It is spiritual. It flows from a heart that believes, sometimes blindly, in a power that governs the universe with justice, order, and love. This trust becomes their greatest asset, not merely an attitude of optimism, but a magnetic force that draws divine intervention into their lives. It is not uncommon for such individuals to endure hardships, walk through storms, and face trials that would unnerve most people. And yet, even in the darkest moments, something within them keeps moving forward. They may not have the answers, the strategies, or the strength in the natural, but their inner posture says, I know there's a reason. I believe something good is coming from this. That is not weakness, it is power. It is the power of trust. This trust opens the doorway for divine protection because it aligns the soul with the rhythm of heaven. It becomes a signal, a beacon in the spiritual realm that says, here is one who believes even when they cannot see. Trust, especially when unintentional, is a beautiful form of spiritual innocence. It is not tainted by overthinking or corrupted by self-reliance. The unaware spiritual individual often carries a childlike faith, one that doesn't need to understand everything to keep moving. They wake up in the morning, go about their duties, face challenges, and still sleep peacefully at night because something in them is anchored in the belief that all things are working together for their good. This trust invites divine presence. It opens the gates for supernatural help. Heaven is attracted to trust, not anxiety. It is drawn to faith, not fear. There is a divine economy at play here, where trust becomes the currency that purchases protection. Not that one can earn grace or manipulate divine intervention, but trust creates a bridge between the natural and the supernatural. When a person believes without seeing, trusts without knowing, and continues without evidence, they place themselves under the watchful care of a higher order. The more they trust, the more access they give the divine to operate freely on their behalf. Protection flows to where faith is present. Trust becomes a shield, not because it blocks trouble, but because it invokes guidance, provision, and divine wisdom at every turn. Most spiritually sensitive people come to realize this later in their walk, that the days they felt most alone were actually the days they were most covered. The times they didn't know where the next provision would come from were the exact moments when heaven was preparing it. They look back and recognize that their trust, even if it was subconscious, was the very thing that kept them afloat. They may have cried, stumbled, or even doubted, but they didn't quit. And that quiet endurance, fueled by trust, made way for divine movement. The hand of God responds to the heart that believes. There is a hidden strength in people who are not easily shaken. It's not that life doesn't shake them, it's that their foundation holds firm. And that foundation is built on the belief that they are not alone, that their life has meaning, and that there is more happening beyond what they can perceive. That's trust. And trust doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't need declarations or spiritual language. Sometimes it's the mother who keeps praying for her children without knowing what's happening behind the scenes. Sometimes it's the young man who keeps working toward a dream, unsure of the outcome, but certain it was placed in his heart for a reason. These are the heroes of trust, people who walk with their eyes closed, but their hearts open. The beauty of trust is that it activates protection long before the individual knows they need it. It prepares the way before danger comes. It draws angels before the battle begins. It aligns the person with divine timing and orchestrates divine delays that seem like disappointments, but are actually salvations in disguise. A spiritual person who trusts deeply may miss one opportunity, only to realize months later that it would have led them down a destructive path. They may be redirected without explanation, only to find that what they were originally aiming for would have compromised their peace or purpose. Trust doesn't always give answers, but it always leads to safety. In moments of silence, when heaven seems quiet and life feels uncertain, trust is what sustains the spiritually unaware. They may not be having visions or hearing divine voices, but they keep walking. And that steady walk, grounded in unseen confidence, summons a host of divine assistance. They may not feel special or chosen in the moment, but heaven sees their trust and responds. Because trust is not about knowing what's next. It's about believing that whatever is next is part of something greater. It is important to understand that trust is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move forward in spite of it. The spiritual individual who walks in trust may still feel nervous, unsure, or even broken at times. But they carry on, they keep showing up. They keep listening to that inner knowing, that whisper in their soul that says, keep going. And with every step taken in faith, the unseen realm responds with favor, guidance, and protection. Trust becomes their covering. It becomes the signal to the invisible world that this soul is anchored in something eternal. They don't always recognize the connection, but it's there. Their trust in a higher power invites the movement of that power in their life. It builds a hedge around them, not because they demanded it, but because their heart welcomed it. Their belief, quiet and persistent, makes room for miracles they don't even know they're walking into. There is a holy mystery wrapped in the experience of those who walk the spiritual path. A mystery that cannot be fully explained, only lived. This mystery is called providence. It is the divine hand that weaves through the tapestry of a person's life, threading moments of joy and sorrow, success and failure, peace and pain, into a masterpiece of purpose. Providence is not simply about events working out for good. It is about a higher intelligence ordering those events, even the painful ones, to fit into a divine design. The spiritual individual may not always recognize this, but their life is under the careful orchestration of a force that sees the end from the beginning. Providence doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't explain itself. It simply moves, and those who are spiritually in tune may sense it. But even those who are unaware are still beneficiaries of its grace. The power of providence lies in its quiet control. It operates behind the scenes, adjusting outcomes, delaying decisions, shifting people, and redirecting journeys without sounding an alarm. What seems like coincidence is actually coordination. What appears to be a random encounter may be a divine appointment. What looks like a denial could be divine timing. This is the mystery, how a person can walk forward not knowing exactly where they're going, yet arrive exactly where they're supposed to be. Spiritual people often live with this paradox. On the outside, it may appear that they are wandering, unsure, or even struggling. But internally, they carry a calm awareness that there is more at work than what meets the eye. They trust the unseen compass guiding them. They make plans, but they also hold those plans loosely, understanding that providence may reroute them at any time, and that rerouting is often for their protection or promotion. What they lose is sometimes heaven's way of making room for something they didn't even know they needed. What they miss out on may be what saves them from a lifetime of struggle. This is where spiritual maturity begins to manifest. Not in having all the answers, but in having peace with not knowing. The spiritually attuned become comfortable with divine detours. They stop asking, "Why me?" and begin to ask, "What is this teaching me?" They stop demanding clarity and start walking with confidence even in the fog, because they've learned that providence is not always revealed in the moment. Sometimes it is only understood in hindsight. The job that didn't work out, the relationship that fell apart, the door that closed, later becomes the testimony of a path that was protected, a destiny that was preserved. It is not always easy to embrace this mystery. Human nature craves control, explanation, and certainty. But the spiritual journey requires a surrender to something greater. It requires the humility to admit, "I don't know how this is going to work, but I trust that I am not walking alone." That trust creates the conditions for providence to move freely. It liberates the individual from the pressure of figuring everything out and allows the divine to step in with strategies that surpass human understanding. Providence doesn't need your permission. It just needs your cooperation. And what's remarkable is how often providence shows up when least expected. It appears in moments that seem insignificant. An overheard conversation, a delayed flight, a last-minute change of plans. And yet, those moments become turning points. The individual was simply living their life, unaware that heaven was engineering their steps. They didn't know that the person they bumped into at the store would become a lifelong connection. They couldn't have predicted that a closed door would lead them to their true calling. This is how divine providence works. Silently, consistently, and always with purpose. Even in suffering, providence is present. The spiritual person may endure loss, illness, or betrayal, but these experiences are not wasted. They become instruments of transformation. The pain they walk through becomes the wisdom they carry. The delays they endure become the patience they develop. The broken pieces of their story become the testimony that heals others. Nothing is lost in the hands of providence, not even failure, because the guiding hand that protects also redeems restores, and renews. That is why the spiritual person can walk through fire and come out refined. It's not luck, it's providence. There are moments when the reality of this guiding force becomes undeniable. A situation resolves itself in a way no human could have arranged. A door opens that should have remained shut. A disaster is avoided without explanation. These are not mere coincidences. They are divine fingerprints, evidence that providence has been at work all along. For the spiritual person, these moments don't just inspire gratitude. They deepen faith. They become reminders that their life is not random. They are not wandering. They are being led, and every step, whether uphill or downhill, is accounted for. Sometimes providence even protects them from themselves. There are prayers that go unanswered because they would have led to destruction. There are desires that are delayed because the person is not yet ready to handle what they're asking for. And in those moments, it may feel like rejection, but it is really protection. Providence guards the future as much as it guides the present. It is aware of what the individual cannot see and acts accordingly, not to punish, but to preserve. That's the depth of its care and the extent of its wisdom. In the grand scheme of things, the spiritual person does not need to see the whole picture to keep walking. They don't need all the answers to keep believing. They live in the tension of mystery and assurance. Mystery because the ways of providence cannot be traced. Assurance because its presence can always be trusted. This is the beauty of a life governed by the unseen. A life where every step is watched, every misstep corrected, every delay infused with purpose. They may not always recognize it in real time, but when they look back, the evidence is clear. Something greater was guiding them all along. So, what does all of this mean for the spiritual man or woman walking through life unaware of the divine movement surrounding them? It means that your journey is not random. Your struggles are not wasted. Your victories are not yours alone. You are being watched, not in judgment but in love. You are being protected, not from all pain but from every destruction that was never meant to touch you. Heaven has not abandoned you. In fact, it has been escorting you quietly, guarding your purpose, surrounding your destiny with divine intelligence and invisible power. You have been walking with angels when you thought you were walking alone. You have been shielded by grace even in your most vulnerable moments. The truth is, your life is not just happening, it is being guided. And the more you trust, the more you awaken to this truth, that you are never out of sight, never without help, and never outside the reach of divine providence.